Hello there everybody, and welcome to another Transformers TCG analysis video. Anthony joining you once again, and today I am going to be talking about a few questions I have regarding the meta going into Team Bayformers Omega Invitational, basically regarding how the meta is sitting ever since the end of Encounter 5. Now, what is this Omega Invitational I'm talking about, some of you may be asking? Well, the Omega Invitational is the finale to the World Strike Tournament Season 1 from Team Bayformers. 16 players have been invited to face off for the coveted Omega Cup, and all of these face-offs begin next week, in less than a week rather, on March 28th. However, the festivities are beginning early with a series of giveaways courtesy of Team Bayformers, which includes complete sets of allied crossplay cards, as well as a Wave 5 Autobot Outback card autographed by his artist, Dan Kana, and his original G1 voice actor, Greg Berger. You can sign up for all of these weekly giveaways at bit.ly/OI giveaways, of which I have that link on the screen. And for those looking to sign up with a promo code, here's one right now. This one is exclusive to this video, so be sure you use it. Use the promo code GS7D in your entry, and you'll get an additional entry for the giveaway. If you've already entered a code, no worries. You can go back and edit your form to add this extra code. And lastly, if you're watching this before the Grand Finals ends, you still have time to enter this code to get that extra entry. Again, if you want another entry into the OI giveaways, enter the code GS7D on the forum at bit.ly/OI giveaways before the end of the Grand Finals, which the date of that is to be determined. We actually have to play the bracket matches first in order to figure out when that's going to be. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this analysis, which, per the usual on this channel, there's probably a hot take or two in here, so you have been warned. So let's go ahead and start by talking about the event ban lists, and I said lists plural. That was not a mistake. There are actually 3 ban lists that are being used for this event. The first, the standard WotC ban list, you all know what this is. The second is the Team Bayformers ban list. Everything on here has been banned by Team Bayformers, obviously, for one reason or another. Springer provides too much advantage. The health heads cause too much singularity, let's just say, with the heads, for lack of a better term. DE is just degenerate. PTT and Sec Check have way too powerful effects, so they have been replaced by Line Wait and Take the Shot. Mission Briefing, same deal. It's just way too exploitable, and it has been replaced by Hand of Adaptus. Finally is the Garrus 9 ban list. This is a rotating ban list that is used to take cards that are good but aren't necessarily bannable out of the game temporarily, and then they can be let back in later on, just to encourage deck diversity. So for this event, in addition to the normal allied crossplay ban list, Sky Shadow Sync, Fangry, Quake, and Horrible have been banned. So how will this have an impact on the meta? First, there's a specific TROP strat that's been starting to pop up recently that'll likely fare way better with Sky Shadow being gone, assuming it sees play in this event, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Second, Hollow Matter Projector. Now, I want to preface this statement by saying it is a good card. However, I do think its value was a little bit inflated because Sky Shadow, Bowl, and Quake were running around like crazy, and with those idiots gone, I think Hollow Matter still might see some niche sideboard play in decks that have low health characters with high defensive capabilities, but with Cayman being the main direct damage option right now, it probably won't be an automatic main deck inclusion for this event. Finally, are there any characters that will be able to step up in the place of the banned options? To be honest, I really don't know. The only thing I can really think of is Barrage, as his Bold 2 is fairly easy to get, and Pierce 2 on flip isn't too bad. Plus, he could theoretically be a decent soft counter to Exhaust, but I'm not sure that 11 health and 1 defense is going to go over well when orange decks are still running rampant nowadays. Speaking of orange decks, are we going to continue to see their dominance, or will blue rise up for the first time since Encounter 1 to balance things out? Well, to start answering this question, we have to go back to the last non-casual or Harmony event, Encounter 5, and look at the top 8 there. And the short answer was, it was still orange beyond belief back then. Of the top 8, 5 of those decks were orange: Soundwave, Cars, Devastator, and 2 modified versions of Burgos Bold, and of those, the former 3 cracked the top 4, including that Devastator deck, which is piloted by yours truly. The other 3 decks were split between 2 blue decks, another Devastator build, as well as a Gilthor anti-Pierce deck, and Fort Max, which is inherently mixed based on how the deck wants to operate, albeit this particular build, which won the event, featured a 16-26 orange-blue split, so it was mainly blue, and blue was kind of kicking around overall, but was definitely outnumbered. Despite that, I feel that won't be the case as much going into OI. The E5 format was extremely new at the time, and there were still several optimizations and discoveries to be made about the strategies that were floating around. We've had about 5.5 months since the end of that event, and even in the last couple of weeks, we've been finding new ways to go about running the decks we saw in that event. Plus, we've seen that certain matchups are closer than we previously thought. As a result, I think Orange is going to maintain its dominance, and I wouldn't be surprised if we only saw one blue deck make it out of the initial round of 16, if any. However, this is a double elimination bracket we're looking at here, so I wouldn't be surprised if a blue deck made a run in the losers bracket. So now let's get into talking about a few specific cards from specific sets, starting by talking about the feature crossplay set of Encounter 5, Turbo Rev and Old Punks Phase 1. We saw a couple of things come out of that set with Encounter 5's results. Impetuous Stand being broken as all hell with its original form, and Devastator being a legit deck. The former has been resolved by changing the effect to not work against any upgrade with a star, including Battle Masters and Weaponizers, no longer draws your opponent a card, and it's lost the green icon, so that card is not going to be nearly as universal as it once was, and I can speak to that seeing a massive drop in play for it on the casual circuit. With that out of the way, though, the questions really now are, what is Devastator going to be capable of this time around, and will anything else from Phase 1 sneak its way into this event in any capacity? Starting with Devastator, I did run him to 4th place in Encounter 5, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, and I have been playing him ever since in a decent capacity, so I feel I can speak fairly accurately on this. I still think Devastator has the tools to make a decent run, but it will take a skilled deck builder to put him in that position to make said run. On top of that, the way you play Devastator today is fundamentally different than one might expect when they think of Devastator, especially if they're not familiar with the allied crossplay scene. I've mentioned this before, but I realized this thanks to discussions with Naga and Bill going into the top 8 of Encounter 5, but with an orange build, Devastator is not focused on the tower and is more focused on playing a sacrificial offense using the pieces, for lack of a better term, using Devastator as the final kill shot and then focusing the game plan, as I said, on the individual Constructicons. If you're looking for an example of this in action, go check out my top 8 match versus Bretasaurus over on the live channel, and I'll link to that replay in the description. As for other potential options in Phase 1, there's unfortunately not a whole lot here I suspect might end up floating around for this event. However, there is one card I do want to highlight that I hinted at earlier: Obfuscating Cloud. Cards have always been a threat in this game's history, and a lot of people, myself included, are quickly realizing that a Cars deck having the ultimate anti-one-hit KO tool is not that bad of a move to make. And with Smokescreen plus Strat, you can still afford Wheeljack plus Cliffjumper and have a Prowl sideboard plan if Safeguard isn't needed for some reason, like running up against a Rogue tier blue deck or something. That being said, I'm not sure this will go anywhere, as you need to be running 2 Smoke Thrower, a non-green upgrade, due to the fact that removal is still everywhere, especially with Impetuous floating around, even after the nerf. At the very least, Smoke Thrower can't be hit by Bashing Shield, so that's at least a positive. Albeit before we move on, I should mention Obfuscating does work for any character, but I feel Cars is the best application of it. TLDR of that, Obfuscating Cloud is starting to pick up traction, but I'm not sure it will go anywhere because of the upgrade removal currently running around. Speaking of TROP cards, let's talk about Monster Menagerie for a second. This thing released back in October of last year, and aside from a couple of brief stints where me and Tank were discussing if Bludgeon was too powerful, an appearance of Highbrow in my Death Crystal deck for Losers 1, and a few casual decks that were trying to make Bonsaitron Nemesis a thing, there's been zero talk or play around this set. Admittedly, that may be due to the small size of the set, as well as it being the newest Allied Crossplay release at the moment. But are there any sleeper picks floating around in here that could sneak their way into the OI? Well, there's only 9 characters, so let's do a quick speed round and go through my thoughts on each of them. Bonsaitron's bot mode is a bit too inconsistent with heavy aggro decks running around at the moment and has an extremely low health pool. Bludgeon is an absolute house, so if there's any Monster Menagerie character that'll sneak in, that's it. Brainstorm has Gear's alt mode on a plane, and Focus 1 is nice, but he's a bit fragile. Fangre's fairly tanky, and melee characters are more prevalent than ever, but he might be a bit too pricey, especially with Nemesis being much more applicable in a general sense. Hardhead is basically a Fort Max counter, and outlooks for Fort Max have been fairly grim as of late. Highbrow is an interesting defender, but his bot mode is fairly niche, which might make him too expensive as a result. Hoist is good for spiking additional armors, but really doesn't do too much else. Mega Ratchet is good for enabling both opportunes, thanks Vangelis, but not much else, and Wolfflyer might seem prevalent because greens are everywhere, but he suffers from the same issue that Bonsaitron suffers from. TLDR, if any Monster Menagerie cards show up, it's going to be Bludgeon, and if it's anything else, I am going to be very confused. Lastly, let's talk about 3 of the historic power players in the Allied Crossplay meta: Exhaust, Crash Bash, and Sharks. None of those appeared in the top 8 for Encounter 5, but all of them have been kicking around in casual circles, so where do they all slot in for the OI? Well, Crash Bash, with the banning of Fangry and Bull, is the best 6-star Titan Master we have floating around right now, but with the health heads being banned and him pseudo-requiring to be played in a blue deck to maximize his effect, his power is definitely limited. Maybe he cracks into a deck that's playing Gyro Blaster to minimize the chances of flipping too many oranges, and maybe he plays Stylor to prevent an Imp Shield or take the shot from turning off the ability, but an 8-star with 10 health seems highly suspect in a heavy orange-black environment. As for Exhaust, he's still powerful, but his cost has essentially gone up since Beacon was increased to 2 stars, making that plus Exhaust a 10-star package. I still think at least one person is going to try to use him, since he's not only one of the most consistent defenders in the game today once Beacon activates, but he also has all the usual card tricks, plus one of the better bounty abilities we've seen. Finally, Sharks are still being optimized to this day, and as a result, unless somebody's been practicing with them offline like crazy, I doubt we see any play, as it's one of the most complex strategies the game has at the moment, and unless you are extremely proficient with it, it's probably not going to go anywhere for you. So, those are the big questions we have right now going into the OI. Of course, these are my humble opinions, and obviously these are prone to hot takes, so I am probably going to miss on all of them, but let me know what you think down in the comments. What do you think is going to show up in the OI? Do you think any sleeper picks are going to be floating around? Do you think Devastator is going to do anything? Do you think Exhaust and Crash Bash are going to make a resurgence? Who do you have winning? I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. The rest of that was scripted. This was not. But for now, hopefully you enjoyed what you saw here today. If you did, there will be a little red button you can push down below to show that. And again, OI starts next week on the 28th. These broadcast locations are to be determined. I'm pretty sure the live channel, which I'll link to in the description, will be one of them, but I still need to work out those details with Bill. We'll figure that out. And of course, I'll be playing in the OI as well, so maybe you'll catch me doing stuff, I guess. I'll figure that out. Anyways, that will do it for this video. Peace out, y'all.